Hello, I'm Chris of Krissys Over the Mountain Crochet and Crafts, and I want to show you a time-saving technique to add buttons to any product that you need to add buttons to keep them from shifting. There are two things that I will show you using this taping technique. The chicken sweater you are seeing, the free crochet pattern is at Krissys Over the Mountain Crochet.com. Now, I have several buttons that I am going to demonstrate on how to use the Scotch tape method. And at the end, you will see which buttons I used and why to put onto the chicken sweater. So over the years, as I've been crafting, there have been many star buttons I have accumulated, and I love to embellish and I played around. So my first thought was use these miniature 1/4 inch buttons to represent stars. Now you could also crochet French knots with your yarn, but I thought the buttons would be cute. They'd be a clean finish, but I didn't have very many. That was all I had. So I thought, well, I'll add star buttons off to the side, and I think that looks really cute. Maybe a flag. I don't know. I don't think that will look right. But here's what you do. You take your Scotch tape, and I'm going to be putting them row by row on top of the buttons. Now that Scotch tape has static electricity, so you have to keep that in mind. When you're putting the Scotch tape on top of those miniature buttons, they'll jump around on you. So you got to hold it in place high above the buttons and then push it down real quick so the buttons don't jump on you. But the good thing about this is I wasn't sure at the time if that was the design I wanted to use. So I lifted them off to keep them in place just like that so I could lay them aside and then put them back later. All right, so I played around with these star buttons. I really liked all three colors, but the navy didn't look good. This is what I ended up with. Now I'm going to use a different method. I'm going to tape by the row, and then I can lift those off because I have two other button styles I want to try. I'll lift them off, put them off to the side, but then I can always add them back on later on. I did not choose these buttons, maybe another time, but I want you to see what this looks like. You may have a preference on how many buttons, and these glitter buttons were so cute. I wish I had had more of those glitter buttons. I just didn't. So I just taped them and put them together, laid them off to the side so that I could remember. Now I ended up using these mother of pearl white buttons, and I had several of these. And in this case, more is the best. I don't think you can over embellish. I do think the little flag is too much. I didn't take that off, but I'm taping all of these buttons across the row. Now I ended up with a little bit of the tape caught too soon. I had to retape some. I ended up retaping taking all the buttons off and retaping the whole set, as I didn't like the arrangement of the buttons. I ended up with 17 buttons at the end, but push down with your finger in between each button space. Leave a hangover on both sides. If there is no hangover, put a hangover. It helps you have something to hold on to. Now thread a needle with um, 2 strands of thread, and then you just come up from behind and sew right through the tape. Easy peasy. Now you want to pull down just a little bit. Yep, pull down and tighten it down. That way the tape isn't going to make the threads float above the button. All right, I'm only taking 2 runs through each button so that I can demonstrate this quickly. Take it to the back, knot it. Now you can cut right here, or you can just move on to the next button, which is what I decided to do. Now, if you're really going to be I am only demonstrating here. I'm not putting this on a chicken. If you are truly putting this on a chicken, you're going to want to make more than 2 passes when sewing on that button. Chickens are notorious for pecking at each other, and I can just see them pecking these star buttons off. So you will need to make more than 1 or 2 passes on sewing this button in place. But a good technique is just going from button to button. But if you don't like the look on the back of going from button to button, just carrying your thread across the back and letting it float, then cut your thread and knot it each time. It's just a little more time consuming that way. So I'm at the end here. I was able to sew on 5 buttons, cut that off, but this is what the back will look like. If you don't like that look, then don't do that. Now it's time to tear the tape off. Now I like to put my thumb on the button and tear in the direction that the thread is. There we go. Easy. Now I don't recommend packing tape. Packing tape will leave a glue on your buttons. Now I want to show you a bonus here. If you do make a crocheted product that has to have a loop go around a flat backed button, you need to make a shank. And a shank can be made with thread. Let me show you how to do that. The first thing you're going to want to do is make a double knot, double strand of thread on your needle with a knot. So I know where I'm going to place my button. So I go behind and I make a pass in the yarn with my thread, not going all the way to the top. I pull it almost all the way through, and then I open up the double strand of thread and put my needle through that double strand, if I can get that. There we go. And then I finish and pull that tight. The reason is sometimes that knot will come straight through to the front. Now to make a shank using a flat backed button, so bring your needle up from behind and then go down through in the second hole, whichever hole you choose. You can decide to do an X on your button or just a back and forth, whatever you choose. But once you make that first pass, lift the button. You will need the legs of the thread to be rather tall, 1/4 to 1/2 inch. It will become shorter after you make the shank, but you need this to be rather tall. So hold the button above the product so that the legs of the thread are rather tall. Now keep this technique up. Continue sewing the button on, holding the button up above the fabric. And the reason for this is you need to have room to place that crocheted loop. Those loops are fat. And if your button doesn't have a shank, you can easily do this by holding or suspending the button or pulling the button up so that those thread shanks are tall. Now I'm going to come up from the bottom with the needle, but I'm not going to go through a buttonhole. Now wrap, 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 and 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 wrap. You get the idea. Now you have a shank. Now take your needle, go through to the bottom, and make a knot. I am not the best at hand sewing. Please don't pay any mind to that mess. Make a knot and clip it off. And now you have a button with a shank where you can easily put a crocheted loop around that button and it will fit underneath that flat backed button. It's just a nice treatment. It's something that you might find that you need. So there were 2 ways to use the tape. The first was to use the tape to demonstrate button placement. The second was, while the tape is holding the button in place to keep it from shifting, you sew right through the tape. What a great technique. And remember, you can find the free crochet pattern for the chicken sweater at ChrissysOverTheMountainCrochet.com. It was so good to have you on my side of the mountain. I hope you'll come again soon. And please like and subscribe. Goodbye.